For some odd reason, I've got like a candy theme going on right now. Since getting the Blackmagic Ursa Mini, I've always faced a very particular problem. Uh, Not being able to monitor myself when I'm in front of the camera, like right now. When I'm behind the camera, the 5-inch LCD touch display works pretty well and does a great job even outside in bright sunlight. It is pretty good. But when I'm in front of the camera, it does not swivel 180 degrees, so there's no way for me to see what I'm doing and how my focus is, how my frame is when I'm in front of the camera. So in December last year, I got this SDI to HDMI signal converter, and when I tested it with the two monitors that you see behind me, well, there you go, there's the other one. And when I tested it with those, it worked very well. But when I tested it with the extra BenQ monitor that I keep around to do stuff on my server when I need to tweak something or it needs to be rebooted, well, that didn't work and it kept throwing a out of range signal error, and that wasn't fixable by any kind of additional hardware. So after spending weeks in the depths of the interwebs, forums and indie reviews, I finally settled on the Lilliput A7S and ordered it. I wasn't expecting it to arrive for another 20 days since publishing this video, but it arrived pretty quickly. And in the box you get the monitor itself with the rubber case pre-installed, a sunshade, a ball mount, a Sony f970 battery mount, and a mini HDMI to HDMI cable, which is useful to connecting to cameras like the A7S, the A7R, which is pretty useful when connecting to cameras like the A7S, the A7R, and a lot of these Canon and Nikon DSLRs that shoot video. The rubber cover feels pretty good in the hand, and the sunshade attaches to it from the inside with pre-installed Velcro straps. The rubber cover has marks for all the I/O as well, so you're not left guessing what goes where. Overall, it has very little play once it's on the monitor and adds decent drop protection. Plus, it's pretty useful when you're installing the monitor on top of your camera or a friction arm or something like that, and you don't have to touch the front screen. So yeah, that's pretty useful. The monitor, however, does not come with any power delivery mechanisms, no batteries or a power brick. Hashtag batteries not included. On one side you have the power input, a HDMI input, a HDMI loop output for daisy chaining to other monitors, both capable of 4K 30fps signals over HDMI 1.4, and a 3.5mm jack for audio monitoring. On the top you have a 3/8 screw hole, the power button, the function 1 and function 2 buttons which are user configurable, the exit button which is only useful when you're inside the menu, and the menu toggle plus tile. All these buttons are super clicky and tactile, and that is probably the biggest reason for me favoring this monitor over all the other monitors in the same price range. So for my initial testing, I grabbed two power bricks, one which was 5 volts 1 ampere for the converter and the other which was 12 volts 1 ampere for the monitor itself, and with a quick plug and play I was able to test that everything was working. Fast forward 2 weeks and now I have a fully untethered setup running. So I am able to power the monitor itself via the battery that powers the Ursa Mini, and I'm using a tiny power bank right there. So I'm using that to power the converter. All power banks output 5 volts 1 ampere, so that is perfect for powering the converter, and the battery can do 13 to 14 volts depending on how much charge is left in the battery, so that works out pretty well. I've been testing this monitor in all kinds of situations except for very dusty outdoors. The monitor has peak brightness of 500 nits and it holds up very well in the afternoon sunlight. This is also one of the few monitors that I shortlisted which quoted 170-degree viewing angles, and this is the only one that lives up to that hype. For the observant amongst y'all, you may have noticed that this isn't a 16:9 ratio 7-inch monitor. It's a bit taller, and that's because the native resolution of the monitor is 1920 by 1200, which is the 16:10 aspect ratio. This is very useful when I'm shooting 4K RAW on the Ursa Mini, and what the camera does is take that 4K signal and downsample it by 2:1 ratio, and I get that retina quality ultra crispy video to monitor up there, so it all works out pretty well. So let's quickly dive through the menu. Click on the wheel opens up the main menu. The first screen has your brightness, contrast, sharpness, and temperature settings. This monitor allows for custom temperatures to be set which can be useful inside studio scenarios or some of those tricky situations. Next is your on-screen display options, which includes useful functions like center marker, aspect marker, safety marker, and the related marker options. I leave most of them off except for the center marker, which I find useful. The next menu has input options like overscan and underscan, aspect ratio, zoom, and a useful DSLR option which you can use if you're getting signals from something like a Canon 5D Mark I or II, and so on and so forth. The next menu is your on-screen assist functions like focus peaking and its color. The peaking level is pretty useful too. You can make it observe and display a broader spectrum or fine-tune it. Higher the number, finer the peaking range becomes. This is excellent when you need to absolutely nail that focus on a close range subject, or when you're shifting focus between subjects like two actors, or doing a foreground to background focus shift. False color is another favorite of mine, and I'm glad this monitor has it built in. Exposure level, aka zebras, is also available, but I'd rather take this information directly from the Mini, since this camera will obtain the information after the Mini applies my selected LUT to the output signal. And finally, you can toggle the on-screen histogram. I leave this on to make sure I'm not blowing my highlights. The second last menu is for audio. This monitor has a built-in speaker, which I do not recommend using for any serious monitoring. The last menu is where you can set up the two user configurable function buttons, as well as a very interesting feature, image flip. I've set this to horizontal flip right now, so here, take a look. So I have my left hand up and I can see it on the left side of the monitor. Let's see if I can get it focused. Yep, there we go. And when I raise my right hand, it's on the right side of the monitor. So this is very useful for me because I'm dyslexic, and this really confuses me a lot when it's in showing normally. Now I have my function 1 button set to toggle peaking and function 2 toggling false color. Here's a quick demo of that. I did notice a slight backlight bleed on the left edge of the monitor, not a deal breaker of any kind once the monitor shows some kind of image signal. Because of the conversion involved in my setup, the input lag is slightly higher than normal. I tested the monitor on a GH5 and an A7S II, which provide direct HDMI outputs, and the lag was almost negligible. It wasn't noticeable, but you knew it was there. On the Mini, this is quite noticeable, as you can see as I pan the camera around and once I wave my hand in front of the lens. Using the iPhone X's slow motion video setting, I was able to calculate this down to roughly 18 milliseconds. For my YouTube setup requirements, this is completely fine. But for a cine production setup, you may want to look into a monitor that can take direct SDI inputs. It's been super fun testing this Field Monitor out. For the price tag of $169 plus shipping and customs or $15,000, this monitor with all its features has been an absolute bargain. I've already used this monitor when recording a couple of videos you've probably already watched on this channel. Now I do have to still properly rig this up on the Ursa Mini and attach all the moving parts here and there. So I'm waiting for some Velcro pads to arrive so I can do that. If you've liked this video or would like to see more camera gear related videos on this channel, hit the like button. If you've disliked it, let me know down in the comments why you disliked it. And if you're new around here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.